Gotta clear my head.
Hello, I'm the Smoking Cheddar, but you probably already knew that. Um, we got an officer spotlight for a change. Don't worry, we're not covering the naval officers just yet. We'll wait until there's a few more of them. Uh, but speaking of a few more of them, margaritas, anyone? That was a bad joke. If you laughed at that, you're a terrible person. More so than me for making it. So, if you're not familiar with the officer spotlight videos, we go through the skills, left to right, 1 to 5, giving them a ranking for each and an overall rating at the end. And then we discuss a little bit about how we can use the officer. So, what do we have this week? We have a versatile field skills officer. Let's have a look, see what that is. Okay, so we've got Margarita's skill here, tactical skill, the first skill open. And you'll notice that it is now at the standard 1800. Now, typically, rule of thumb, it needs to provide something extra in order for us to get a score of 4 off of a standard baseline. And as the standard baseline is now 18 rather than 15, it automatically scores a 3. But does it score a 4 or a 5? Well, we get a bonus damage coefficient here of up to 550 on top of that 1800. So that's really tasty. But it comes with a catch. In order to score that 2350, we need to meet this requirement. Prep time of 8 seconds for the tactical skill Lethal Lure, and we've got deals skill damage to an enemy coefficient of up to 1800 if the target's HP is below 75%. If the target's HP is below 75%. Deal extra skill damage to the target of up to 550. Now, what does that mean? It just says target, it doesn't say unit and fortification, it just says target. So we don't know if this includes bases or not. If this does include bases, this is pretty nasty on an artillery piece. I don't know if it includes bases or not. It definitely includes units. Now, the requirement to get the extra is a bit iffy, but we do deal quite a lot of extra damage once we get it. I'm reluctant to give it a 4 because there is a outstanding requirement, and let's be fair, if you start dropping 1800 damage coefficient in a tank on tank battle, that tank's going to the enemy tank will suffer. So while we have that extra 550 there, and it is effectively going to give you the ability in a kill shot in a one-on-one fight, I don't know if it's really a justifiable 4 because of the outstanding requirement. That being said, in a large AG, it doesn't really help because, again, you know, the targets are going to be getting nuked down so fast in front of you that it's not really going to have time to capitalize on a 75% loss unless it goes off at exactly the right time on exactly the right target. I'll be honest, it's a nice chunk of damage. If it was just that damage by itself, it would be 3. But it is that damage by itself with a caveat. So it's hard to push this beyond a 3, if I'm honest. Don't get me wrong, I'm not hating on the damage output of this skill. I just don't see it going. If it had like 1800 and a slow or 1800 and a debuff, it would be a 4 depending on the debuff or slow type. It could even potentially be a 5. Didn't need to deal the extra damage as we're already at the 18. I think I've said enough about this skill. I think it's a 3. It's an average skill, but it just hits harder. So on to the second skill here, we have Killer Charisma, much like myself. That's the second bad joke in this video. If you laughed at both of them, you're a terrible human being. So we've got increases the damage intensity of this officer's troop by up to 15%, and while in the field, the troop firepower is increased by an additional 30%. So this is gearing specifically towards field play players. So people like myself who play either defense or base to base. We're not really going to have much of a use for this officer. That being said, if you are donating MBTs, if you don't have tech for MBTs and things like that, maybe you're just donating artillery, out in the field an extra 30% firepower in on top of that 15 is really nice. It is obviously at the discretion of you being out in the field. So again, we've got a bit of a snag with this officer in terms of there is a requirement to receive the bonus, which is not unheard of for these types of skills. We often get them in tank officers where we see like you must be in a specific type of tank and or helicopter in order to receive a power bonus, or artillery officers often have the same as well. So this is just a play style caveat. I think it's a 4. If it didn't have that little sort of like, hey, you must be out in the field in order to receive this bonus, that's a 5 on number output alone. But because we've got to just rein it in a little bit, it is a 4. Now, evasive steps is the third skill. Now, this dodge skill does not get implemented a lot. It's only on like a handful of things in the game. So we've got the dodge skill here on Margarita.
Another mission? Let's do up and roll out.
We have the dodge skill here on Bomb Princess, who is a limited officer and you cannot get anymore. As this says on the tin, it is just a chance to dodge incoming attacks by up to 10%. That's quite significant, because if you do have access to Bomb Princess and you do decide to train that skill in even further, you can increase the chance of you not taking damage. So this is quite a powerful skill, and specifically it goes up to 10%. 1 in 10 shots you are able to dodge. If you're up against something like a light tank with a high rate of fire, that's pretty significant. If you're up against something like artillery, it will be luck of the draw as to whether or not that's going to save you. Either way, this is a very good trained skill, and 10%, a 1 in 10 chance to not get struck by an attack. I think that's quite powerful, and if you do have the capacity to train that further, I think that is exceptionally broken for a tanking unit. That, I'm afraid, I will score pretty highly at a 5, because this mechanic doesn't get used a lot, but when you see it pop off in game, it is very powerful. And it's definitely a counter for high rates of fire. So moving on to the fourth skill, Steel Bloom. Increases the damage intensity of the officer's troop by up to 10% and the damage resistance by up to 10%. It's nice and easy. It's a 4 all day long. We get an intensity bonus and we get a damage resist bonus. This is great for field play. It is absolutely fantastic if you're doing an intensity build, which we will get to towards the end of the video. And lastly, the Awakened skill. This officer's troop has a 75% chance of deploying either a flashbang or a gas grenade. The flashbang will shock the enemy target for 1 second. Now, the shock is highlighted, so we can read what shock does. A debuff that causes the normal attacks to miss their target. So we can now see how this will play into that 10% dodge rating and the potential for us to increase that dodge through other trained skills. while the tear gas grenade will delay the current target's skill prep time by 1 second. So we can basically, if two tanks were to meet at the same time and you had double intensity versus say shield and skill, this would give you a massive advantage over that shield potentially deploying, giving you the edge to deploy your skill damage before their shield. So that is pretty powerful. This skill can trigger once every 8 seconds with an equal chance of being either the gas grenade or the flashbang. So this is quite potent because not so much for when you're defending a base, but if you're out in the field in a one-on-one situation, your tank versus another tank or a helicopter or an artillery piece, you have a 75% chance on attack to deploy this. So if you have it on a high rate of fire, say like the light tank on an intensity build light tank, you're basically guaranteed to deploy this every 8 seconds on the dot every 8 seconds. So it's effectively giving you an additional tactical skill for free. I am going to score this a 5. Now I know there's some of you out there who are going to strongly disagree with this because you don't think that the target miss or the 1 second reduction time in prep time is going to make a big difference. I assure you that this is going to make a huge difference in a one-on-one situation. This officer is specifically designed to go toe to toe with everything in the field. And we score a 4.2, only let down by the tactical skill at the start, to be perfectly fair. Now, what do you get for a 4.2 officer? How can we use this officer? Well, I recently done a video. If you haven't already seen it, I'm assuming you have if you're here, on the rocket launcher build that I just done, where we use a load time reduction War Machine, and I suggested that perhaps you could use Berserker Bear instead of War Machine as the captain, always taking the +1 grid bonus from Champion of the People. She is now a third option for that build on the basis we have several things that can trigger on hit, which will be a benefit in a RL field fight. We have chance to miss, we've got chance to reduce prep time, we've got chance to dodge incoming attacks, which is incredibly powerful, and I myself am considering getting her absolutely blitzed for the next L4, getting her up to level 60 and getting her out on an artillery piece myself, or even perhaps use her as a rotation officer for damage on my infantry, because I think this is pretty broken, to be fair. How else could you use her? If I had access to it, I'd probably stick her on an intensity style build MBT, where we're training in intensity, we're training in damage resistance, and we're training in potentially firepower as well. And I would be looking at maybe pairing her with another intensity officer, not a critical strike officer, pure intensity, so someone like Havoc, for example. And the fact that she is versatile as well gives us a lot of leeway. We can use her on pretty much anything going, anything that we want to get scrappy in the field with, artillery, infantry, because we've got a high rate of fire, so we're looking at those chance on hits popping off even more. We've got tanks, helicopters, you name it, she's going to be good on it in the field. If I was going to put her on a helicopter again, I'd probably use maybe Havoc, or perhaps I would use Whipcracker, because we have movement speed, so she would be good to be paired with Whipcracker for movement speed on a helicopter. We have skill damage reduction, which is going to play into the additional reductions and debuffs that you can apply to the target. We're also getting a normal attack resilience buff, which is absolutely brilliant out in the field, on top of a damage coefficient. So we can then train in additional dodge, we can train in additional firepower and damage intensity through the skill training system. I think we've got quite a lot of potential to use her on artillery as well. For example, as I've mentioned, we can use her alongside Champion of the People on the RL out in the field. If we're looking to, say, deal that extra bit of spice to an enemy target just by driving out, launching some missiles and driving back in, I don't think she'd be particularly good in terms of siege damage, because we don't know if that 75% bonus 550 is applied to bases or if it's only applied to units. It just says the target HP. It is a blanket term, and they've used blanket terms before which have been incorrect. We can safely assume to a degree that if you had an additional siege artillery, it should be good nonetheless as a donor unit. In terms of MBTs, obviously Havoc. While we do have the additional of a bonus critical strike here, we do have a damage intensity buff, and we do have a damage resistance and a normal attack boost. So Golden Eagle's a good one to pair. And if we're going for infantry, we have a skill boost here. We're already dealing quite a lot of skill damage. We have skill resilience, and we also have the prep time reduction. And we also get a damage intensity bonus for everything within the radius. We get a bonus shield, so we'll be going 50-50, kind of like a shield skill damage combo for an MBT. You could do something similar with the infantry here by using Lonesome Star. And if you did want to go shield and Margarita, you could take Uncle Ivanikov, as we've got normal attack resilience, we have both firepower and HP buffs, we have damage intensity and damage resistance bonuses to match that as well. So you can do quite a lot with this officer, because Margarita has got damage intensity, firepower, we've got dodge rate for survivability, we've got damage intensity again and resistance for survivability and damage output. We've got a utility based, which we haven't seen in a long while, utility based skill damage, a utility based skill for the awakened skill at the end, which is absolutely fantastic. We don't get to see enough utility being employed. Quite often it's just a way to increase the tactical skill, and I do love a good utility because you can change the tide of battle very, very quickly with a good utility. The only thing I will say is I perhaps am scoring the tactical skill a bit harshly, as the tactical skill does hit incredibly hard, but as I said, and as the skill states, it does specifically require you to be on the target to be on 75% HP, and there's not really much you can do about it. It's very, very nice though. Like, if you have a high firepower unit, like a Vanguard MBT, that is going to deal a lot of damage, but it's getting that target in a one-on-one situation down to 75%. Something that maybe the RL would be better at in a single volley. So again, we're looking at maybe pairing her with Champion of the People, or whoever you might want to pair her with in terms of your skill damage output. And as always, I'm not going to comment on the limited officer pairing potentially, or the lounge officer pairing potentially. I will do that in the comment section down below if you happen to mention a combo. But for these videos, I never ever bring up those officers because I don't think it's fair. I can cover those officers at some point if you guys want me to, but to be perfectly fair, I think most of us are quite happy with the introduction of the free-to-play officers because we get quite a lot out of them, to be fair, and a lot of these are now better than the lounge officers from 2 years ago. So, there you have it. That's your latest officer spotlight. I don't think we'll be talking about our new officer Dame Sombra here just yet, as she is an aircraft carrier based officer with a garrison skill. I kind of feel like she should have been versatile as well, if I'm honest. I feel like that was a bit of a letdown. I've been the Smoking Cheddar and you've been very patient. Thank you very much for watching. As always, a link to the Discord will be in the description box down below. If you do choose to join the Discord, please remember to be an adult. We do insult each other on a regular basis. You're more than welcome to come and sit in the voice chat. Just please remember, put some headphones in, guys. I don't want to hear your washing machine going, or the fact that your wife or boyfriend or whatever is watching 27 Dresses. That's like the only chick flick I know. I know I've mentioned it about 100 times in my videos. Bridget Jones's Diary, there you go, that was one that was quite recent ish.